Hey, it is Sunday, February 12th, 2023, and you are listening to the Super Bowl of video game podcasts, Black Box Signal. I am your host, Chase Johnson, and I am joined always by Brandon Gaston, the MVP, the MVP of the podcast.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready.
Yeah, is that enough? Have we met our football pun quota for the episode? I think that's like what 3-4 in a row right there.
Did you have a clip all queued up for halfway through the cast so we have a halftime show?
No, the halftime show is gonna be my camera going out again. That's what it's gonna be, like it's been every week. But hey, we got the date right this time, so I'm gonna take it because last week I know I got the date wrong because I was tired as hell. Yeah, so that was awesome. But we're not watching the Super Bowl because we're not big sports guys. So we're here doing this. And it's going to be a lot more fun than the Super Bowl because when was the last time there was a good Super Bowl? Let's be real.
It's been a while. There hasn't even really been a good halftime show in a while either. So, you know.
Right. I hear you. Yeah. But yeah, so I haven't done too much this week. I've got like not much. I'll kind of jump in first with just like my first topic, but I know I said I was trying to finish Crisis Core. I'm so close. I was on chapter 5 or 6 last week on the podcast. I'm at like the end of chapter 9. So I'm getting super close. Super close. So next week I'll have my final thoughts, but I do want to say the Sephiroth fight is still pretty hard. That is actually what hung me up on PSP and made it so I didn't want to finish that game. Because it was on PSP. And so yeah, but I actually got through it this time. That fight is so tough. And then the second phase, you have to beat him before he pushes you off a ledge. Like he keeps inching you closer to this ledge. And if you don't beat him within a certain amount of paces, he'll push you off and it's automatic game over. Even if like you're surviving the fight. And
well, I mean, it's Sephiroth. I mean, it's gotta be, you can't do no bummy fight there, bro.
Right. So I mean, it's to be expected, but yeah, that's not the final boss fight of the games. But I've gotten to the point to where, spoilers if you care about, but this is a really old game, a remake of an old game, so sue me. But spoilers, skip ahead. I just got past the part where we're basically trying to get Cloud out of Nibelheim, and he's all fucked up from Mako poisoning and whatnot. And it was after the point where he throws Sephiroth into the life stream. So that's where I'm at. I'm there, and then there's another chapter after that. So next week, hopefully, we're gonna have that finished up. But what do you got going? What have you been getting into this week? I know you haven't had a chance to play too much, but you still got to do a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't really play a whole lot. I honestly, dude, to be honest with you, I've been slacking a lot. I've been not doing too much game wise. Been binging a lot of animes, catching up on all my shows and stuff. So that's been good. I did have the privilege to watch one of my friend's streams the other day. Shout outs to my buddy Slickock. He was streaming this game on his Switch called Golf Story. And I've never seen it before. It's an older game. I guess it's been out for a while, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm thinking about picking it up myself. It's essentially like old, like NES style graphics, and it doesn't look like it's overly like too complex or hard. But what I like about it is like the story. Like it's very humorous and funny. So I enjoyed that. Like there was one point he like hits this kid in the head with a golf ball to get him out of the water that apparently has alligators in it at a golf course, I guess. And the kid's like all shaking and stuff, and he's all like, "I don't feel good." And the mom's like, "What? Look what you did to my son!" And the main character's just like, "Well, I don't know. He looks fine to me." Like that kind of humor. So it was pretty funny. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's something cool. Definitely, it's up your alleyway. You're always about those indie games. So
Yeah. I heard about it a while ago. Isn't it kind of just like a kind of like a cross between like an old school top down JRPG and just golf? Like
yeah, kind of
like
yeah,
a Harvest
you
Moon
have
where you
like
play golf.
yeah, you like level up and you have like little stats that you can put into your golf swing or whatever. I I would say it's probably can't be more than like $20-$30. So I mean, it's in that Price is Right category. Not I don't think it's super long, but definitely worth it, you know.
Right, right. Well, yeah, definitely. But yeah, yeah, Slickcock or David. I'll use his first name. I won't use his last name here. But yeah, we need to get him on the podcast sometime because I think he'd be fun. I know we're only a few
Oh
episodes
yeah.
in, but this is your open invitation, Slickcock. If you ever want to hop in on a Sunday with us, we're more than happy. That'd be pretty cool. Um, and then we wrote down, this was kind of spurred by an argument we had with a friend in the chat, our friend
Oh
John that we do
yeah.
talk about. But you wrote it down, just controller discussion. Um,
Oh God,
so
yes.
so so why don't you go ahead and set this up? What spurred this up?
Okay, so for some reason
We
the
love you,
other day
John. We're
we
not trying to make fun of you.
yeah,
It's all out
we
of
do
love.
love you. But for whatever reason, I don't know how we started talking about that, but we started talking about like I think it was just the N64 in general. And John was talking about like it was like peak everything like controller and stuff. And me and you were kind of just like, that's a hard disagree on there.
Yeah, mind you, he was
and
saying that like that was the best uh like Nintendo controller essentially.
mhm.
Yeah. So I
And
was like, hmm,
no,
no.
no. I mean, look here. I call it the Trident. That's what I'm going to use to refer to it for the remainder of the time. To me, I never really cared much for that controller, and I think that's kind of what steered me towards the PlayStation at that time, right? Because when I was a kid, we didn't get those until like they had already been out for at least a year or two by the time my dad finally broke down and was like, all right, we'll get them for you guys for Christmas. So I got the N64. Me and Kyle got that as a shared gift. And then my oldest brother got a PlayStation. And I was super excited for the
I think your
N64.
oldest
And
lucked
then,
out. I think your oldest lucked out.
oh, God, yeah. And I tell you, it wasn't even a month in of having the N64. I spent more time in my brother's room playing the PlayStation than the N64. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And if we're talking controller wise, okay, if we're talking just Nintendo controllers, I people go back and forth on this, but my favorite's the GameCube controller. I actually like the GameCube controller a lot. It does have some weird button placement and like the button sizes are weird, but with how much you use the buttons, like you use the A and B button the most in a lot of Nintendo games. So the fact that they're right
Mhm.
there is nice. I like that it was the first one to have like adaptive buttons. Like we're talking about having adaptive triggers now. They had that a long time ago where you could just press it partial the way down and then press the rest of the way down and get a different input. Um yeah, so they were like the first to do that. But the N64 was like you couldn't even put all your hands on all of it. Like you had two
No.
wings and then like it just didn't work. And then the PlayStation came along and the original PlayStation control didn't even have analog sticks. It was still just an old school controller. But when they came out with the DualShock, that I felt like that kind of changed everything
Oh
for
yeah,
for
most
controllers.
definitely. The DualShock laid the ground for pretty much every controller after that, in my opinion.
Right, because even the GameCube controller that I just talked about came after that and like Xbox.
Hmm.
I,
Well,
I would
I
argue,
mean,
oh go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, think about it. Like, if we really kind of got to go back to the beginning to really have a discussion on this, especially if you're just talking
Oh, for sure.
Nintendo controllers. Like my first system was the NES, and think about it, you had your D-pad and two buttons. And back then, I thought that was revolutionary. Like, oh my god, like I get two buttons, blah blah. You
Right,
know what
right.
I mean?
Or like what like I had it later, but I have an Atari 2600 with all the old stuff and it's literally just a joystick and one button. That's all you
Mhm.
have. And then like oh, I even have like the tennis paddles which don't look like tennis paddles. They're literally like a little dial that you turn and it
Oh yeah,
stops.
yep,
And then I have
yep.
the racing one that spins like freely
Hmm.
and yeah, and that didn't even have any buttons. It just had the turning dial. That's it. No button. Nothing else.
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
But so yeah,
And
at the
then
time.
yeah, revolutionary. And then immediately after that, dude, hardcore upgrade, right? It multiple light years ahead with the SNES controller. You had the D-pad, you had basically your regular Nintendo controller, but then they were like, "Oh, we're going to give you two extra buttons."
And
And I
shoulder
was like,
buttons.
"What?" Right? And then I was like,
It
"Dude,
was the first one to have
shoulder
shoulder.
buttons?"
It was the first one to have shoulder buttons because even
Mhm.
I liked the size of the Sega because that generation I started with the Nintendo 2 and then I actually went to the Sega Genesis because
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't get my
that's
Sega
right.
Genesis until the PlayStation 1 came out, and I'm because we were super broke. And I remember I like went to Dicker and Deal, which is like an old pawn shop in our town, and bought like a boot, like an old Sega, the Gen 1 Sega Genesis. Like a lot of people had the Gen 2 that was like slimmer, but I had the actual like Gen 1 big one.
The
Um
big thick one.
the
I think my cousin
big
had
thick
that.
boy. Yeah. And so but I liked the size of the N60 or of the Genesis controller, but I love that you had so much more like cuz that still only had the 3 buttons, ABC, start and select on your D-pad. Didn't have shoulder buttons, didn't
Mhm.
have so I liked the size of it cuz my hands were I mean, you're not going to see this, but I have pretty long lanky fingers. So I liked the size of it, but the
Mhm.
Super Nintendo controller just for the fact that it was the first one to have shoulder buttons, game changer. Cuz look at the
Yeah.
now there's a controller in the world that we just kind of take shoulder buttons for granted, but now like imagine if we never had that innovation. Like
Well, I mean, look, people could even make the argue that like the Wii nunchuck doesn't have shoulder buttons, but I would disagree because it does
yeah,
have
it
the
does.
little.
The triggers.
It's got the triggers, which
If
essentially
you're holding
same thing.
if you're holding the nunchuck and you're holding the regular remote, which is how they would you intend you to do it for the more pop like bigger games like Zelda and Mario. They
Mhm.
intend for you to play like that. Yeah, they definitely have both the triggers.
Yep.
And even the N64, I mean, had the ZL trigger underneath and then it had the two on top. Although
Mhm.
again, because it was shaped weird, how could you ever touch those buttons? Um,
Yeah. You were like this, and then you had to change your hand to like this, essentially, and back and oh my god,
nope.
ugh,
Nope.
what a mess.
And then like I said, the next innovation was definitely the DualShock with the thumbsticks because now every
Yep.
controller has two thumbsticks. Even the GameCube had two
Mhm.
thumbsticks, even though that C stick was a little bit different. They still had two thumbsticks. The Xbox
Yep.
controller, two thumbsticks. Dreamcast even before Sega went under, two thumbsticks. Um,
Oh,
so
the Dreamcast with their giant freaking
oh
that.
man,
Oh, I hated that
I
controller.
love that console though. A little part of me loves that console. It's like because it had a lot of good weird ideas. With the first one that you could hook up to the internet, like
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll give you that.
but yeah, no, it wasn't much. But then like later on in controllers, I started to hate the PlayStation controller because then once I started playing on Xbox, now we both agree that we don't like the Duke, the original Xbox controller, right?
Oh God,
Like the big
bulls.
fat one. But when they
Yeah,
came out with
terrible.
the S controller, the smaller version of the Xbox controller on the original
Prime,
Xbox, that was
hardcore
like the
prime.
perfect size.
Mm,
And then they kept it when they went to the 360 and then now with the
yep.
one in the Series X. But that, because of my hands again, felt more comfortable in my hands than a PlayStation controller after a while. Which is why I was
Mhm.
glad that once we got to DualShock 4, they took the Sony controller and just blew it up and made it bigger. And now I love the freaking like I mean, I got my purple one right here. I love the DualSense because I feel like it's like the perfect blend of like the size of like the Xbox controller, but the placement of the PlayStation controller. Which, and don't get me wrong, I still love the Xbox controller too. They're both comfortable to hold. That's why I loved the Xbox controller for the longest time. And I'm so glad that Sony now has like a controller that's like the same size. Because you have to admit, like the PlayStation 3 era, if you were a person that went back and forth between an Xbox controller and a PlayStation controller, it just I didn't like the way that it felt like when you went to the DualShock, the PlayStation 3 DualShock. It just felt tiny. But
Yeah,
at the time it
it
felt good.
different experience. I mean, honestly, that's why I ended up getting a pro controller for my Switch was because it felt very similar to an Xbox
Pro
controller,
controller feels good.
and I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yep, I have a pro
Also,
controller, but nope, go ahead.
fun fact, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I didn't know this for the longest time. What was this to you? Was this the X button
Oh,
on a
okay, I know
PlayStation
this. Yep,
controller?
it's technically in Japan, it's the cross button.
It's the cross
But
button.
I
I
always say it's X. Yeah.
never
Yep.
knew
Yep.
that.
It is the cross button. It is not the X button. We in America,
Mhm.
or at least in America, I don't know if it's like this in Europe. I can't really speak for them or South America, but it's the X button here. But technically in Japan, it's the cross button. That's just
Mhm.
what they call it.
I never knew that until I got my PS5. And so, anybody that doesn't have one, my sympathy to you. Hopefully, one day you will get one. Um, but when you first start it up out of the box, right, it's got like basically like a Siri voice that talks to you, and you can change it, male and female voice, or you can get rid of it. I got rid of mine real quick because it annoyed me almost as much as Navi from frickin' Ocarina of Time did. But
Hey, don't
her
talk shit
voice,
about Navi.
her voice literally is kept saying cross button, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And yeah, yeah,
It's the cross button.
interesting fun fact.
Yep, yep. And then what were there any other controllers that I really hated? I don't know. I think the N64 is probably the
The Wii
worst.
U, the Wii U one is not very good either.
Like, are you talking like the separate one, not the one that's part of the gamepad? Because the gamepad kind of
Um,
just feels like it paved way for the Switch.
right. No, I'm talking about the separate one.
Okay, yeah, that one was not that great. The thumbsticks felt weird.
Mhm.
They were like too far away from your thumbs. Like they were like in. I know this is
Yeah,
really great for, people who just listen to this, but they were like too far in. They made your thumbs go far in at an angle, and it was really weird.
yeah, very strange.
Yeah, yeah. Um
Actually, for a lot of people that talk shit about the Wii like nunchuck controller, I actually really liked that and thought
at the time,
I thought it felt
it
good.
was it feels like crap now in comparison to like actual like VR motion and stuff like that, or even the Switch motion controls. But at the time, like it was super innovative to have like motion controls like that. Be able to play like, I mean, yeah, that was the first time they made Link right-handed because Link has always been left-handed. And if
Mhm.
you were right-handed, he would switch the sword to his right hand, and that's how you'd play like Skyward Sword. We'll talk about whether or not Skyward Sword's a good game or not. That's another discussion.
Oh
But
God.
um
Mm-mm.
we can agree on that. But but I mean, at the time, that was like super, super novel.
Yeah, they did that because the majority of the world's population is right-handed, so most people that would be swinging the nunchuck would swing it with the right hand. So that's why they made him right-handed.
Yep.
But if you play Twilight Princess on the GameCube, because it's on GameCube and on the Wii, I played it on GameCube. Link's left-handed in that.
Yeah.
Fun fact. Yeah, they made him left-handed in the GameCube version, but in the Wii version, yeah, he's right-handed. It's the only time he's been right-handed ever.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you picked the swap hands though, you could swap.
Could
I
you?
I thought so.
I don't know.
I thought so.
I
I'm not
also
100% on that.
heard. I don't know if this is confirmed or not, so don't take my word as law. But I heard the reason Link's left-handed is because the creator is also left-handed, so that's why he made Link
That
left-handed.
that one surprised me. That
Mm-hmm.
one surprised me one bit. Um yeah, but then I guess I have one more little discussion topic since it is the Super
Oh
Bowl.
yeah.
I know you initially chuckled at this, but I thought this would be kind of fun to like talk about. Now, it's no secret since we are shooting this at the Super Bowl and it's 8 o'clock on Super Bowl Sunday, and we don't give two fucks of what's going on right now. Um, we are not really sports guys. I think you like our local sports teams because we do won't say exactly where we live, but we live in Michigan, so I know you are a Spartans fan, right?
Oh yeah.
So there's that. But other than that, do you really pay attention to any sports? I mean, I watch wrestling, but I don't really count. That's fake. So
Um.
it's athletic, but it's not.
So I mean, mostly like we've had season tickets for Spartan football. Ever since I was a kid, so I go to that as much as I can. I do enjoy watching some college basketball, but not a lot. And baseball, surprisingly, I used to go to Lugnuts games quite a lot, which is the local team in Lansing, our capital.
Yeah, it's
Um,
our minor league team.
mhm.
Yep.
And I've been to some Tigers games. I enjoy that. But the thing that I really like if I had to choose a sport to watch, I enjoy hockey a
Yep.
lot,
If
actually.
I had to pick one to watch, if I could get into one, because I'm not into sports, it'd probably be hockey if I was to get into one. When I was
Mhm.
younger, a lot of my family members in the Johnson side of the family like um basketball, so I tried getting into basketball when I was younger, but it didn't stick because I was bad at it. So, um, but I figured I'd ask, like, were there any weird rabbit holes you ever found yourself falling down, like with a sports game, or like even if it's just like one title that like you just randomly got into, even though you're not a sports guy at all?
Yeah. Actually, this may surprise you, but Fight Night. I
Okay.
I am not okay. I'm not I like really am not into boxing at all or MMA, but I don't remember which one it was. But I had one of them on the Xbox, and I absolutely loved it. Just loved playing it because you can make your own boxer, pick your own fighting style. And then I remember like you could get your own trainer and like stuff, your what do they call it, like your agent or whatever.
Right.
And I remember in this particular iteration you could unlock the king from Burger King to be your agent. So when I came out, the king from Burger King came out with my guy. It was
That's
hilarious.
awesome.
But it was one of those games yeah, definitely went down the rabbit hole on for whatever reason. I don't know. I absolutely love that. And Def Jam, the two Def Jam fighting
Oh my
games,
God.
dude, bro,
Def Jam. Okay.
loved them.
The first Def Jam game, I didn't love it, but I saw where it was going. Def Jam Fight for New York was my
Dude,
fucking shit. Even though
a
that's kind of
jam, dude.
like like even though it's like not like I guess a traditional sport game, it's more of like a fighting game mixed with some wrestling, mixed with some like all sorts of
I'll
stuff.
give it a
But
pass as a sports game myself. I'll give it a pass. It's
well,
close
well,
enough.
for the sake of the fact that we both like that, like Def Jam Fight for New York, I'll allow it.
Which is weird because I was never big into like fighting games really, and honestly, like at that point in my life, I really didn't listen to too much rap either. So it was kind of a shock to me that like I just all dude was addicted to it, man.
Dude,
Like,
yeah. I was more into like
oh,
punk rock at the time that like and pop punk rock at the time that I've gotten Def Jam, and I
mhm.
wasn't really into hip hop or anything either. And then like I just started like I went down this rabbit hole with it like after the game came out because I got super into the game because the fighting was like super ridiculous and over the top and
Yes,
yeah
yes,
like
yes. And then you had all that weird, like it was cool. People had like weird catchphrases in it,
they were cutting
and
promos on
like
each other like it's wrestling.
oh, bro, like I remember Method Man. This is one that sticks to me. Method Man had some line that was like, "I'm gonna fold this bitch up like an old wallet."
Yeah, yeah, something like I'm
Whatever
sure.
that means,
Yep.
but sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just cool. The character customization, you could like put tattoos on your
Yep.
character and stuff. It was ahead of its time, I thought.
Well, and you could
Yeah.
like throw like people into things and like and you fought until you knocked the person out like in a fighting game, but you could do like power bombs like it's wrestling and like
Yeah.
you could like
Some people had like martial arts, and it
mhm.
was
I
wild.
remember the dude's special that I like. Oh, who was it? Oh, Sean Paul's special. That's who I stole. I
Oh,
took his special for my guy because his special was sweet. It was his and Snoop Dogg's special that were like moves that were like the best in the game. But Sean Paul's was like ridiculous because like remember how I had like that breakdancing stint in high school that I could breakdance for a
oh
little
yeah,
while.
yeah, yeah.
His like had a bunch of breakdance like capoeira in it. Like and like you do like a backflip off their back. Like after you did like a bunch of
Oh,
like stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so Sean Paul, shouts to Sean Paul. I was never really into your music, but man, your wrestling move in Def Jam Fight for New York, chef's kiss,
Solid.
mwah. Like,
The
like
primo for
that move
sure.
was sweet. Not to mention all the weapons that you could use in that game. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna pick up a cinder block and bash you in the head with it. It's like
Yeah.
you'd be dead in all reality, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
You'd-
Smash your head on a car, like on a freaking hood of a car, and
and it
all.
did that
Yeah.
thing where you could bust their lips open, and they like after the fight you could see yourself all beat up and stuff. So
Oh
that was like
man.
when games weren't doing it that much.
Dude, the end of that, when you fight Snoop Dogg at the end, remember you have to like kick him through the glass window and he falls like 20 stories to his death or
Well, yeah,
whatever.
because spoiler alert, it's about gang wars. Of course it is. 'Cause, like, like it. So yeah, you had to. What wasn't your dude like D Mob? That was the dude's side you're on, or something like that. Like it was some made up. I can't remember. There's so many different people that were in that game that I couldn't tell
Yeah,
which
I
ones were real
know.
and which ones weren't.
All I remember is like the first person you meet is like Method Man, and he's like the guy that's like grooming you to be like
The next
their
fighter of the streets, like
yeah, their enforcer for their squad or whatever.
right, yeah. Were there any other like Any other sports games that you got into though? Like other than like Fight Night and Def Jams, did you get into like any like traditional sport games at all? Like quote unquote traditional? Because I actually have a couple that might surprise you when we get to mine.
So we had bringing back the the shitty N64 controller. We had NASCAR on that we
Okay.
used to play a lot of. And especially my dad and my uncle, shout out to my uncle down in Florida. They used to play that game for hours. Like they would talk so much crap about how we played video games all the time. But when my uncle came over to visit, they would go up there and play that NASCAR game for like 2.5 hours straight and not move. Him and my dad, like
Nice.
ridiculous.
Actually, now that I think about it, okay, so it's gonna sound weird. It's like my dad's girlfriend's son, because they were together for a really long time and they broke up and now they're back together. Really weird. Anyway, so like he was like the closest thing to a little stepbrother that I had. We had this NASCAR game that we played, but like we would like purposely try to caution everybody out of the race. So it was just me and him racing at the end.
Oh
Like
God.
we'd set the lap limit to super high, and then we would just like go in reverse and start causing like as much mayhem as possible, with also doing as little damage to our cars as possible. Like we would try to
Mm,
get them to swerve and stuff, and like maybe we'd scratch our paint a little bit, have to change our tires, but we try to keep our cars like pristine while trying to wreck everybody else out.
hmm
So that, and then Burnout. I love me some Burnout, but that's more of a traditional racing game. Not really. I don't really consider that a sports game because that's just more of a racing game. But yeah, I remember that NASCAR game a lot.
I would, yeah. I mean, I know it's not really traditional, but I would include racing games in with sports games, honestly.
I would include the more sim ones like Gran Turismo and like your Forza Motorsport. But I don't know, Burnout's pretty arcadey. So
Who are you kidding? I used to play some Midnight Club Dub Edition.
okay,
Like
if we're
it
getting
was
into like just
going out of style.
general racing games, then yeah, I'll count Burnout and then I'll count Trackmania. Trackmania is one that I fell down that I did not think I would ever fall down. That game it's like real life Hot Wheels cars, because people buy like make ridiculous tracks in that game, like magnet
Mm,
tracks, so you can go like upside down like you're on a roller. It's ridiculous, and hit like huge ramps where you have to like purposely spiral and land like on another track that like if you miss it, you're just off the track. That one's really cool. It's run based too, so it's like you're just playing against like 30 other people online. So that one was
no.
big that I got into.
We can't forget about the most goat of the goat sports games, bro. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, man.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even think about that. That
Love me some Tony Hawk,
Tony
dude.
Hawk,
Oh man.
yeah, with the remaster or the remake, 1 and 2, I got Violet into it, and Violet loves Tony Hawk now. She's super super into it. Earlier
How
this year
could you
too,
not?
Session, that's more of like a skateboarding sim that I played earlier in the
Mhm,
summer. That one's really good too, but it's more like if Tony Hawk is like Burnout because it's arcadey, like Session is more like your Gran Turismo, because it's like you got to know stuff about like foot placement and stuff with the sticks to make like to do a
mhm.
kickflip. So it's more simulation based. But
It
yeah,
reminded me a
Tony
lot
Hawk.
of Skate that came out earlier.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what it
a
reminded
harder
me of.
version of Skate, because I think this is that session's actually harder. But yeah, all the Tony Hawk games. Okay, real fast. We're not gonna debate this. We're just gonna say, and we'll just leave it at that. Favorite Tony Hawk game?
Oh, we do count of three.
No, no, you go first because there's gonna be a delay. So what's your favorite Tony Hawk game? And then we won't even debate it. We'll just go on.
Pro Skater 2.
Okay, Underground. First Underground. Thug.
Okay.
Um, So some other sports games that I got into. I mean, I obviously kind of spoke last week with the wrestling talk that I got super into the
Mhm.
wrestling games, which I know people can argue. I would argue that it's still a sport just because the outcomes are predetermined. They're still pretty athletic in the ring and like are doing things to each other and getting hurt and whatnot. It's all planned. Like, so it's
Mhm.
still athletic, but I obviously got super into the wrestling games, so I won't go too much into that. But some other games that I got into weirdly, I guess going into
Mario Tennis. I'm just like,
actually the earlier Mario Tennis games are really fucking good. And Mario Strikers, the soccer one, is actually super super good. Um,
mm,
but I got really into NBA Street too.
r-
Yup.
real. Wow, I
Yeah.
am surprised.
Yes, I got super into that one because the dunks were super ridiculous and the teams were just 3-on-3.
Oh, kind
So
of like NBA Jam style. Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot like and I got super into NBA Jam too. So like
Okay.
it was
Yeah.
more like I guess it was more of an arcadey take on the sports games. So much so that when they did NFL Street, and you know I don't like football, I got into NFL Street because it 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 made it so like there was no out of bounds. Instead, there was just walls. So it was like hockey. So to do like a catch, you could just like run up the wall and launch off of it. And it was just
Oh
so over the top.
Jesus.
And then like you could check people like into the walls because it was more like arena football. This is what it was like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was super fun. And oh, I got super in to both the first NFL Street and NBA Street 2. Uh
Hmm.
like hard. And then I also on the PlayStation 1 and a little bit on the 2, I got into NFL Blitz, the Blitz
Oh, okay.
games. Because that was again more you can see a theme with this by like wrestling. It's all like the over the top and like you're like purposely trying to injure the guy across the way. And like I think there was even a point where in one of the NFL Blitz games that like you can like convince like if you did a season, you can like slip your character steroids. Like it was a mechanic in that. And it was like it would boost this stat, but it might make this stat go down, and you don't want to get caught. And like it was so ridiculous. It's like my goal this week is to injure their quarterback. That's like on the list, like in
Oh
things like that.
God.
So I got really weird into the weird football games, and basketball games, I
Oh,
guess, and the more arcadey ones that were ridiculous. And then,
I got
oh, you
I
got
got
one?
one for you. It's a throwback. You
Okay,
talk about
so I got a
outrageous
throwback too.
games. So on the Super Nintendo, we had this game. It was called Baseball Simulator 3000. I think it was like 2000 or 3000. And you could play regular baseball in it, but you could also play outrageous. So like your pitcher could have like these crazy pitches, like one where like he would turn into four pitchers and would throw four balls at you at the same time.
So it was like Mario Kart, but with baseball.
Yeah, dude, it was wild. Like you throw one, it would turn to a like lightning bolt and shit like that. Like it was pretty fun, man. I played a lot of that back in the day when I was a kid.
Nice. And then oh god, okay, this is kind of a sports game. So do you remember like the Sega Genesis Maddens? The really old like football games that were um kind of like just top down how they are now, but they were just 2D. Um
Oh man, like Tecmo Bowl on the
well,
NES.
Tecmo Bowl was side scrolling. I'm talking the one that still has like the traditional perspective that we have now. There was one on I think it was on Super Nintendo, but it was definitely on Sega, Mutant League Football. Mutant League
Mm.
Football was the shit because they had like alien teams, like you had the superhumans, and then you had like these reptile guys, and you could literally murder other players on the field. There was like mines on the field. If you got knocked out of bounds, you just got sucked out into open space because each football field was just floating in space. Um,
Oh god.
there was a thing where like if you didn't like a call that was called, you could kill the ref. It would lose you 5 yards. It
Oh,
would lose you 5 yards, but you could kill the ref. Um,
dude, that's Base Wars. Base Wars on the NES was like that. It was a baseball game like that, and you could have like robots on your team,
yeah, it was like
and like
you
there
had like
was
these weird like okay for Mutant League Football it was like you had superhumans which are basically like roided up dudes that had like glowing eyes. You had these like orc looking people, but they're like space orcs. They had these like almost like I want to say like a cross between like Blanca from Street Fighter, but mixed with like a like a like a praying mantis, so they could like
oh,
roll and
okay.
had like spikes on their back. They rolled onto the field. And then they had just guys that were just skeletons. They were literally just skeletons that would run at you.
That
But
sounds
yeah, it had
outrageous.
all these different things. So it was, but you said there was a baseball game like that.
Yeah, it was called Base Wars. I swear it was on the NES, and you could have like robots on your team, and like you were saying about murdering people. Like if there was a close call, it would go to like the side scrolling fighters like scene, and you would just battle the other team's player and like beat the shit out of them.
Right.
And like my brother came up with this dumb strategy where he would take the starting money that you get and he would buy his pitcher the cannon arm, the strongest pitching arm you could get in the game. And then he would just proceed to beam the other team's players until all their robot players blew up when they got beamed and they had to forfeit.
Yeah, so I would do that too with Mutant League Football. I would try to like purposely like murder all their players because there was also things on the field too. So like if you couldn't tackle a guy, you could kind of like chase him into an area. Like they had fire pits that were just open craters that were fire that had fire in them.
Oh,
So you'd
good
fall in and just
God.
burn that player. There was ones that were just empty pits where they'd fall in them and would just have them out of commission. There was these little like alien things that they called the abyss something. If you landed on them, they would just suck you into it and you'd be dead. Like you just yeah, that player's gone. Like I said, they had mines on the field where if you stepped on them and it blew that player up. Like in of course, because it was like, in the early to mid 90s, like they blew up in spectacular gory fashion. Um
Oh, of course.
yeah. Or if you just hit them hard enough with like a good tackle, like if you especially if you did that whole like one dude went for the legs while the other one went through the upper body, you were always more than likely gonna split them in half. Um like, like super ridiculous. And like I said, chasing them out of bounds, they got sucked into open space. Like it was just so dumb. Please,
Gnarly.
please, developers, somebody out there, look this game up and please make us another Mutant League Football. That would be
Over
amazing.
the over the top, to say the least.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of all I have. I mean, I guess the other thing is I touched on like the UFC games a little bit. The one that had Pride, because there was a UFC game that also had like because Pride went under, but they had a little thing that was like a tribute to Pride on there, and I liked watching Pride back in the day. Um, but yeah, other than that, that's all the sports games I was really into.
I
But
would
yeah,
say pretty similar.
yeah,
Um, Not a whole lot. I'm actually shocked. There's a lot more games than I thought you would have, surprisingly.
yeah. I know. I was like, I actually have a list here. Like, but I guess with that, we're gonna go ahead and get into the news, because we have actually quite a bit of news this week. So I guess we're gonna start with there was a Nintendo Direct last week on the 8th. Um,
That we totally called.
that we yeah, we did kind of call it. I mean, we did have some sources kind of talking about it too. But yeah, so we kind of talked about with like Advance Wars and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom going up on the Canadian eShop that, maybe we'd be getting a direct, and lo and behold we did. I wrote the entire list of what they showed off, but we by all means are not going to go all over it. So I suggest if you'd like to know everything, go and watch the direct for yourself. But the big things that stood out to me were Pikmin 4, which is going to be coming out July 21st of this year. Also, can I say the one thing I do love about Nintendo's directs is they don't tell you things that are going to be like, oh, here's a game and it's 6 years away. Like it's just like, here's what's coming out the first half of 2023. And we're not going to talk about anything else and get your hopes up that these are going to be out. This is just what's coming down the pipe. I can appreciate that. But
Yeah, I can too. That is nice.
yeah, so Pikmin 4, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 expansions, that's coming out the 15th of this month. I like Samba de Amigo, so that was kind of cool to see. That's coming summer in 2023. Dead Cells Return to Castlevania. Now, I played Dead Cells. Dead Cells is the shit. And the fact that they're gonna like do a Castlevania crossover, that's kind of cool. That comes out March 6th. The Bayonetta game that I don't think that looked very good. I actually watched the direct. I don't know. Did you end up watching it, Brandon?
No, I didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't end up watching it.
So this got announced a little while ago, I think at the Game Awards. But this is just like it kind of looks like a mobile game, honestly. It does. It's not that
Ooh.
that looks bad. That shouldn't say the. It just doesn't look very interesting, like story wise. Like it's got a cool art style,
Mhm.
but it just doesn't look that interesting to me. But that's set to come out March 17th. Splatoon 3 is getting an expansion pass in spring 2023. I'm into Splatoon. I suck at it, but I think that's cool that,
Oh man,
I always thought that Splatoon was
Eli will be
cool.
happy to hear that.
I always thought that
He loves
Splatoon was
Splatoon.
cool because it's a shooter that your kids can get into because you're not killing
Mhm.
anybody. You're splatting them with paint and like removing them from the field. That's what you're doing.
Mhm.
And the goal isn't to, kill as many people as you can or not splat as many people as you can. It's to actually just spread as much paint on the field as you can. Like take as much territory as you can. That's I can always appreciate that. Um, but yeah, you said Eli's super into Splatoon.
Oh yeah, man, he likes that stuff. Watches a bunch of videos on YouTube about it.
Nice. Fire Emblem Engage is getting an expansion pass, which is already out. And they showed off a bunch of characters that they're gonna be adding. I mean that universe is so huge they can just probably release DLC forever, especially with the story of that game, being able to summon different people from all the different games.
Yeah, just let me get my Black Eagles.
Yeah, okay, that's part of the expansion pass. They're gonna add Edelgard, Claude, and I'm forgetting about the Blue Lion's name now. But yeah, they're adding the three of them.
You don't care about the other two. Edelgard's where it's at.
Dude, okay, what golden deer for life. All right.
Nah, bro. Nah. Hard disagree. Edelgard's Bay.
Octopath Traveler 2, which I know you're excited for. That's coming out
Yo,
February 24th.
bro. Ugh. Ugh.
You really liked that first one, didn't you?
The new thief character for that, it's a female, and I'm super intrigued. So yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We love Katamari Remo plus Royal Reverie. Now, I loved the Katamari games back in the day. I don't know if you remember the Katamari games, like Katamari Damacy, ones where you roll all the stuff around.
I've seen them. I never got a chance to play them, but they looked interesting.
They're stupid fun. That's all it is. Like, it's just silly fun. Like, roll up as much crap as possible. Like, and it gets more and more ridiculous because it starts with like just small things, and it becomes like, oh, now you're rolling up cars and houses and like all this stuff. That's coming out June 7th. Let's see. Etrian Odyssey Origins Collection. I was never really big into Etrian Odyssey, but I know there's a lot of JRPG fans that are. So that's coming out June 1st. Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. April 21st. Super hyped about that. What about you? I was super hyped
Oh
about
man, that'll be cool. I like the Advance War games. They're definitely fun.
Yeah, and like we said last week, we've gotten so many Fire Emblems that it's nice to see that them going back to the other tactical genre like that going into the future. You know, give me robots, give me tanks, give me mechs. I want both.
Jets to fly in and just like missile barrage people and
Right.
stuff.
I like my medieval combat and my, feudal Japan combat and all that, but I like the future stuff too. So, yeah. What I'm saying is I really love war. Like I just love sending people off to their death. No, I'm totally kidding. But so yeah, I'm excited for that. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, February 24th. All these games are actually pretty soon. They're all like the latest I've seen is like July. Like everything is like, April, February, June, like super early. So, yep, that's coming out the 24th. This got me hyped too. Game Boy and Game Boy Advance added to the Nintendo Online service. The Game Boy emulator got added for the regular tier, and then the expansion tier that gets the N64 games also gets the Game Boy Advance games, and that's out now. So that's really cool. I am tempted to re-up on, because I let that expire, but now I'm tempted to re-up on it.
Just to get mine expire too.
Just to get my Advance and and Game Boy games, because they actually had a good. I wasn't able to catch all the games that they had, because they said they're already dropping a good slew of games too. But I couldn't get them all down. But there were some bangers in there. There was like some Castlevanias in there. Some of the Pokemons were in there. They even had like the Game Boy one where it's like it looks like the old Game Boy screen, like the green, like like because I had the original OG Game Boy and before I had a Game Boy Color, and I just remember like that green and black screen. It wasn't colored at all.
I never had a big thick OG, but I had original Game Boy Pocket, which was just
same like that. Because my sister had that too.
That's the OG, only thinner, and yeah, you couldn't play it if it was too dimly lit or anything like that. Oh god, memories.
Yep, so that's cool. Metroid Prime Remastered. Yes.
Yeah,
yes. YE fucking S. I mean, we talk about how we like the 2D Metroids, but man, I love me some of them 3D Metroids too. That's like the one genre or the one like Nintendo game that I truly do like both. And that's out now too. Like that was a cool thing that they did in this direct too, is like, oh, and by the way, it's out now. Like that I need to scrape up some money so I can get that. Is what I'm saying.
I need to go apologize to my Switch in the corner because it's crying as it's covered in a mountain of dust.
Because it got neglected, and now I'm about to be using it a lot again. Yeah. Maybe we should just start a Patreon so we can fund all these games. Hey, if you think that's a good idea, write in at us at Blackbox. No.
Feel free to include a monthly subscription fee in there too while you're at it.
A new Professor Layton game got announced. Professor Layton and the new Steam World of Steam, which I've always liked the Professor Layton games. They're a puzzle game, um, that have kind of a cool art style. That's cool. A new Fantasy Life got announced. That's coming in 2023. That's all they said. It's Fantasy Life: The Girl Who Steals Time. New Mario Kart 8 courses in character coming in spring 2023, and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which I think this already had a date, but it's got or at least of like a month date, but now it has an official date of May 12th, 2023. Um, Overall, I felt as someone who watched the direct, um, I felt like it was a
Sounds
pretty
like
good.
they've got a pretty solid lineup.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds like pretty. What do you think about just looking at? And we didn't mention every game on this list, like I said, and I've missed some of them, but this was like a lot of the big ones. But just looking at this list, what do you think, and what are you excited for?
I think it's a pretty solid lineup. I mean, obviously, I'm excited for Octopath for sure. Xenoblade, that's cool that they're gonna have an expansion pass. I never finished it because that game got so ridiculously hard
Mhm.
that I literally got pissed off and deleted it off the Switch. Like, but it's a cool game, cool art style. Bayonetta, a little disappointing. I never played them, but they look cool. And from a lot of my friends, they said they're really great games.
The
And
first two are really good. Two is really, really good. But yeah, I haven't played three,
Kirby
but
Kirby intrigues me a lot too, because I mean it's Kirby. I
yeah.
mean, I have a cat named Kirby. Let's be honest, people. And this will probably surprise most people, but I'm really not all that hyped about Zelda, to be honest with you. I mean, I love Zelda. I'm a Zelda fanboy. I will admit it, but I don't know.
I'm not either. Because I liked Breath of the Wild, I didn't love it. Um
Yes.
and I've always been more partial to the top-down Zeldas. Like if I'm being, this is gonna get me freaking canceled off this podcast, but I am actually not even that big a fan of Ocarina of Time. Like it's just okay to me. I would rather play Link's Awakening or like any of the top down. Why am I think like yeah, Link's Awakening, A Link to the Past. I'd rather play A Link to the Past. I'd rather play OG. I've always liked the top down ones. I really like Wind Waker, which I know we disagree on that. But but like I was never really into Twilight Princess.
Oh no, see, yeah, that's
Majora's
where we
Mask is okay.
disagree.
It's not that I hated it. It's just like I guess like if I skew
Yeah.
one way, I like the top down. Unlike Metroid, where I like both, I skew to like the more traditional top down Zeldas than the open world ones. And Breath of the
Mhm.
Wild, with like the one thing that drove me the craziest was the weapon degradation. I absolutely hate.
Yes.
I hate that mechanic. I hate it. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. I hate it in most games. I will put up with it in like a Demon Souls or a Dark Souls because I understand that's what those games are. But
Well,
when it
and
comes
you
to
can pay to repair your shit in that one, and this you can't. It just breaks and
and then you're switching a weapon.
shit up the crick.
Yeah, yeah. So it led me to like using all my shitty weapons first. Like, oh, I'm gonna use the stick over using like the sword because I want to have the sword for for like the bosses and stuff like that. And it just,
Mhm.
I will admit, I never finished Breath of the Wild. That can go on my walk of shame. I don't care at this point because I got to the point to where that game just stressed me out to play. Um,
Honestly, I finished it. And to be honest with you, lackluster. I felt that the four main dungeons in it were really lackluster. The puzzles weren't great. The boss fights weren't anything to write home for because it was literally just win Ganon.
what
Okay, who's
was
the next
the
boss?
best
Fire
thing
Ganon.
the best thing about that game and why it even like I felt it was super good for a while and then I kind of came around on like how I truly felt about it was the fact that the world was massive and beautiful. Like that was the draw of
Mhm,
that one. Like it was Zelda finally getting the Skyrim treatment. Um
mhm.
so that was what drew me and a lot of people to it. Just everything else around it I wasn't that into. So I will probably, you know, this is probably going to alienate a lot of our audience, but like if you're looking for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom coverage when that comes out, probably ain't going to get it from us. Like
I
unless
mean, honestly, I'll probably end up getting it because Eli's gonna
okay,
make me get
okay.
it. He'll make me get it. You know he will because he loves that stuff.
Maybe
But
I got to have a buddy that we work with that I think he'll end up doing it and if he's I'm not going to mention his name right now because I don't know if he wants to mention his name so we're not going to go there. But maybe if he ends up getting it, maybe we can have him on to kind of talk about it because I do think we should still have some sort of eyes on it because it is like the big Nintendo release this year. It's probably the biggest one that they've had in a while too. Unless they're going to be stealth dropping a new Mario game, which that's what I want. I want a new 3D Mario game. That's just me. But
Well, all I'm gonna say this is hopefully the enemies and stuff are a little bit better this time around, because that was my big bugaboo, I guess, with the last Zelda game. Was as you're playing the game, you start to realize that like the enemies I felt were kind of unimaginative. You know what I mean? Like
right,
the bosses and stuff, unimaginative. They weren't. It wasn't like previous titles where you're getting all these cool, unique things. It was just like, oh,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just gonna reskin the elves from red to blue.
right. So now we're gonna get into the actual news outside of the direct, although we're gonna stick with Nintendo for a little bit here. This story comes via The Verge, but the Switch has officially passed the Game Boy and PS4 in lifetime sales at 122 million units sold. And the best of all time is the PlayStation 2, around 155 million. So that makes it the third best selling console of all time. Uh, what do you think about that? The Switch, you know, Switch is doing pretty well.
Yeah, not bad, not bad. I don't disagree with PS2 being the best of all time.
Yep,
I mean, you
it,
know
it
what I'm
was it,
saying?
it's the one
That's
that sold the most, 155 million. But do you think the Switch passes that?
no, I don't
Really?
think so.
You don't think so?
I don't. I
They're already at
don't think so,
122,
man.
man. They're at 122. Do you
I don't
think
think so.
the only way? See, I disagree. I think they could do it, because Switches still sell like hotcakes. It's still like one of the number one console sellers month to month. Um, but
Okay.
with the caveat, if another Switch doesn't come out, like a Switch 2, or like that, we've been kind of thinking that it's about time for the next Switch. If they stick with the Switch, I think for I don't know how much they're selling yearly. I don't know. Does this article say what they're selling yearly? Um, yep, it doesn't, but it just says that yeah, they're and that's even with disappointing sales and falling of demand that they've sold that much. So
Okay.
I think they could do it with the caveat that they're not coming out with another system in like the next year or two, which I don't know. I'd like to see a new Switch soon, but
Well, they sell so much because the Switch is still the most readily available console out there. I'm gonna be honest with you.
it's the most readily available and it's the cheapest. The OLED model
Mhm.
is what 350 and the OG is 300 and the Switch Lite, the handheld only one is 200. So it's
Mhm.
still compared to what the Xbox Series S is 400 and the discless PS5 is 400. And then the Series X and disc version of the PlayStation 5 are both 500. And then
Mhm.
if you want to even roll in VR consoles like or the Steam Deck, their handheld PC thing, which is selling pretty well, the Steam Deck is over $500, I think. So I don't know. I feel like just because a lot of people still like even a lot of quote unquote casuals, I don't say that in a derogatory way. I totally get it. Tend to skew more Nintendo. Like even at our place that we work
Yeah.
at, there's so many more people I know that have Switches over every like that's their only console is the Switch.
Mhm.
So I could see it. I could see it just because they're not selling PlayStation 2s anymore. So um you knew somebody was probably going to overtake it someday, and they're not too far off. So I don't know. We'll see. Um
I'm ready for the next big console from Nintendo, man. Switch is old, it's outdated, bro.
yeah. The next story, Nintendo themed story, is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have sold more than 20 million copies in their first 6 weeks of availability. And that is according to Video Games Chronicle. So despite all like the performance issues, if you look at that, let's see. You said 20 million in the first 6 weeks. Pokemon Gold and Silver. Wow, that makes it the fourth best selling Pokemon game of all time. Gold and Silver sold 23.7 million, Sword and Shield sold 25.6 million, and the original Red, Green, and Blue, or Red and Yellow and Blue, sold 31.3 million. And in the first 6 weeks, Scarlet and Violet already sold 20 million.
Wow.
That's I could okay, how we were talking earlier, I definitely think I could see them passing all the other ones. Like
Oh,
they
I
only got
could too.
they only got to sell another 10 million to pass the OGs. So what do you think about that? Like Nintendo being as despite all the issues, that still sells really well.
Um, I mean, it's their first big open world. Like this is essentially what the Pokemon fan base has been asking for since we were kids.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So they're finally starting to deliver on it. I mean, obviously there's bugs and other things that we discussed, but I mean, I could see it happening.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. With how well Pokemon sells, especially if this is the last one that we get for a little bit, if they like kind of pump the brakes, because we did get Legends Arceus and Pokemon Violet and Scarlet all within 1 year, which I thought was like nuts. Uh, um,
Let's not talk about Arceus.
hey. I
Ugh.
I I think that game performance wise performs better than Scarlet and Violet, but
Mm,
um,
mm.
I could definitely see it like if they pump the brakes on it, and this is the only Pokemon that we have out for a while, and they uh supplement it with good DLC, this could pass it. This could definitely pass it. Next story is coming from The Verge again. Nintendo's first $70 game is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdoms. Following in the footsteps of Sony and Microsoft, Nintendo is venturing into the world of $70 games with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, according to a game's eShop page. Duh, 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 duh. I did hear this got backpedaled a little bit, but it looks like there was a lot of retailers that were like basically informed that, oh yeah, it's going to be $70. What do you think about that? That the fact that this Zelda game might be jumping up in price to kind of match the current PS5 and Xbox Series X offerings.
Um, I mean, I, I don't know. I mean, price hikes. I mean, it's bound to happen. Me and you have discussed that. You have to offset the people that you're paying to make and develop stuff, the hardware, all that stuff. So I'm okay with there being a price increase on games. Now they're starting with Zelda of all games. We'll see. We'll see what the game looks like.
I agree with you, because I doubt that Tears of the Kingdom is any cheaper, costs any less to develop than, let's say, like a PlayStation 5 title, like a God of War or anything like that. They're probably
Yeah.
spending just as much money on that. What breaks my brain is like the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X came out and then games went up with it to kind of like,
Yes.
which I know that shouldn't matter. Like graphics and tech, it shouldn't matter that much. But at the same time, like if a Switch 2 or a Super Switch, Nintendo, you need to call the next Switch a Super Switch. I'm just telling you, that's like marketing gold. Um, but if we're getting a Switch 2 at the same time and we're like, and the Switch 2 version of Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom was $70, I could see that a little bit
See that.
easier of a pill to
Mhm.
swallow. I don't know. I see it both ways. It's like the consumer in me is like, oh, this sucks. But then like the business person in me or the people that's like Zelda probably sees it as well, God of War is $70 now and they're selling it for that. Why wouldn't our marquee game like Zelda be $70? One that we poured this much money, this much resources into. And they wouldn't do it if they didn't think people wouldn't pay for it. I mean,
Well, I mean, we've talked about it before. It's an underpowered console. I mean,
but it's Zelda. That's the thing.
I get
I still think people are going to pay for it because it's Zelda.
I get that. I get that. I just, to me, I don't see justification in hiking the price up for it. Like you said, if they were like releasing a more powerful machine or something to go alongside it, sure, I could see that. But like right now, like when the Switch was released, it was underpowered when was released, and now it's getting aged out already by the new Xbox and the PS5. So I mean, I
Yeah.
I just can't see the justification for it yet.
Well,
I
like I
mean,
said,
if
the
you put
Switch
out
when the
a
Switch
new
launched, it was barely more powerful than an Xbox 360. So, yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
like if they put out a new console, a more powerful console, I could see justifying a price hike. But right now, no.
Okay. Yep. I'm right there with you. There's some good news on the hand of this that hopefully this, price hike in games is going to help out because Nintendo, this is according to Kotaku, a theme on this podcast already has been a lot of layoffs and things like that. I think we've talked about layoffs on every single episode, Brandon, would you say?
I mean, there's been a lot of it lately,
Like
so
seems like a little bit of good news here. Nintendo announces that they're going to have 10% pay raises for the devs despite their lower profits this year. That instead of getting rid of people, they're going to increase their pay. Um
hey, there you
so
go.
hey, if you're raising the price to your games to help pay people, hey, I'm cool paying $70 for a game because you're not laying everybody off. Nintendo's announced a 20% sales drop in its latest financial, but still plans to institute a 10% pay raise, the company told investors Tuesday. While it is unclear if that hike will trickle down to temporary contractors, some say that they've already seen substantial raises over the past couple months. And now this is a quote from the president, Nintendo's president. I'm going to say Furukawa because I can say his last name, but not his first name. So we're just going to go with that. It's important for our long-term growth to secure our workforce. So it sounds like that they are investing in their talent versus where we've seen a lot of Western studios kind of,
Investing in themselves.
slim up, or slim down, I should say.
Hmm.
But what do you think about that? Nintendo going ahead and doing that?
Hey, I'm all for it, man. That's great. Like you said, I mean, if the price increase is possibly offsetting this increase, even though they have a real decrease in their profits, I'm a little bit more on board with that strategy because, like you said, taking time to invest in your actual employees versus,
Your
oh, we'll
talent
just cut
pool.
a bunch of you to fatten my pockets. I'm okay with that,
and
man.
and this has like huge like Satoru Iwata energy. Iwata, who was the president that passed away a few years ago, when it reminds me of when we talked about, I think on one of the episodes of the podcast, how he took like a 50% pay cut to
Yeah.
prevent people getting laid off. Like this kind of like it's like his spirit is still lives on with the new president, so that's really cool to see. It's
Hmm.
unclear whether these will hit Nintendo of America. So far, this is just in Japan. Um, they do say, according to this Kotaku article, that where is it? Where did it go? That the news comes shortly after Japan's prime minister called on companies to pay more workers after inflation. So this is kind of something that we're seeing countrywide in Japan. So it could just be
Cause
them.
and effect.
It could just be them responding to it, like I did here also after I read this article, and I don't know if it's in this article, but like Capcom is doing the same thing. That instead of laying people off, they're actually doing some increases. And I think there was another company too. Maybe it was Atlas. I can't remember, but a bunch of Japanese companies are starting to follow suit. So, like you said, if the increase in games price goes to help developers put food on their table and continue to do what they love to do and not break their backs, you know, I'm cool with it. Um,
Investing time and money into your employees is always a good thing. I've always been one for that because that promotes like happiness and stability in the workforce, which generates more productivity, in my opinion. You know,
mm.
if your employees are in high spirits, they're going to produce better quality work.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought, treating your employees like fucking human beings would actually, instead of grinding them into dust, every Western developer right now, major Western developer. Let's see, Rockstar, CD Projekt Red, EA, which we're gonna get to EA here in a minute because that's the last of the good news.
Mm.
Because we're out of the Nintendo block now, so now we're gonna go into the bad news a little bit. This is directly from the SEC website. Activision Blizzard is to pay $35 million for workplace misconduct.
Shocker.
Yeah, which I mean, $30 million probably isn't a lot, considering that their Call of Duty games make about that much when they launch. But it says what it's for. It's for failures to maintain disclosure controls related to complaints of workplace misconduct and violating whistleblower protection rule. According to the SEC's order between 2018 and 2021, Activision Blizzard was aware that its ability to attract, retain, and motivate employees was a particularly important risk in its business but it lacked controls and procedures among its separate business units to collect and analyze employee complaints of workplace misconduct. Yada 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 yada. Yeah, so this is like directly from the SEC's website. I Are we surprised at all after what we've been talking about, though?
No,
Does
no. Blizzard's been riddled with bad stuff for a while. So
Yeah, and this isn't the only lawsuit. This isn't the only one. This is just one that, finally closed officially. And this was as of February 3rd. And like I said, you guys can look this up. It's right on it's not even on a video game website. It is on the sec.gov website. That's right there. Like I said, I don't think it's a drop in the bucket to them. I mean, Xbox or Microsoft is paying what was it, $69 billion to buy Activision Blizzard, so they got money coming in, but at least something's being done.
a step in the right direction.
For sure. For sure. This is kind of a big one. This is like the cancellation block. This story comes via The Verge. And this is a lot of rapid fire ones. EA is going to shut down Apex Legends mobile and a Battlefield mobile game that isn't out yet. They're shutting down Industrial Toys, which is the studio behind those, and Apex Mobile will go offline May 1st. I guess we can just kind of load all these right here as the EA block. EA also cancels Titanfall Legends. So there's that. Knockout City, which isn't made by them, but it looks like it's published by them, I think. That's going offline. Respawn is going to be the new Star Wars studio because DICE has kind of fumbled that relationship, and with Fallen Order doing so well, that's kind of switched things a little bit in the favor of Respawn. But it looks like EA is kind of like how, there was a bunch of canceled stuff that we talked about last week. Looks like EA is canceling a lot of stuff. What do you think about that?
Well, no shocker here. The mobile games, I could care less. Mobile games are a cancer, in my opinion.
Hey, there's some good ones.
Although I will say this, I've been hooked on this stupid anime themed one for like the past week that I've been playing. So I'll give you that. Them canceling Titanfall, that's bold. That's bold because like it's Titanfall. Titanfall's always been well received.
So good. It's so good. It's so good.
Like that was the one thing I missed about last gen when I had my Xbox and then traded it back in for another PlayStation was no more Titanfall, because I generally really enjoyed that game. I thought it was super creative. So seeing them cancel, that's kind of oof. I think that's a mistake on their end.
And this is part of the same article written by The Verge, not necessarily EA, but like I said, Knockout City is shutting down in June. Crossfire X is shutting down May 18th. So a lot of games getting shut down. And then via Gametsu, Back for Blood is going to stop, is going to not release any more content for the game, which I'm kind of surprised by that because I felt like that was received okay. Wasn't received like, it was supposed to be the next Left 4 Dead, and I don't think it captured those numbers. But the fact that they're already stopping, that game launched last year, and they're already ending like DLC content and future updates for that. I mean, what do you think of that?
That's kind of crazy. I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet.
I beta tested it, but I never played it.
I loved original Left 4 Dead. Me and my friend used to play that every Tuesday night because we had Wednesdays off together. We worked at different places, but we both had Wednesday off. So Tuesday night, I would come over every Tuesday night. We would have some drinks and play Left 4 Dead. And then I remember Left 4 Dead 2 came out and we were like hyped for that. So kind of surprised, like you said, especially since it's been what, like you were saying it's like 1 year in so far and they're already canceling.
Yeah, I felt like it came out late last year, like almost like I want to say like it was either early, it either came out in June or it came out in like October. That's what it felt like. Like I can't remember off the top of my head when it came out.
Says it was October, so it's been out for 2 years. October 12th, 2021.
Okay, so a little longer than I thought, but still not too much time, really.
No,
it just passed
really.
a year. So interesting to see that that's, I don't know. Maybe they'll get it with the next one. It says that they did it to focus on next title.
Mm.
Does that mean the next Back for Blood, or are they going to be doing something completely different?
Left 4 Dead 3.
Well, that's owned by Valve, so I don't think that's going to happen. With Valve having Steam, they don't need to make another game again for the rest of their lives because they have Steam. So they have the one of the biggest video game marketplaces on PC. So why would you take the risk of making another game?
That's true.
Um,
Sad.
Next story comes via Kotaku. Dragon Age Dreadwolf leaks and shows God of War style combat. I guess this was leaked on Twitter. And then Kotaku reported it. And it looks like BioWare that the game was fully playable from the beginning to end, but it hasn't shown off any video or screenshots. But then there was a leak of 20 minutes of gameplay. What do you think of? I've never been the biggest Dragon Age fan, but I know you are. What do you think of? And as somebody who just recently played God of War Ragnarok, what would you think of Dragon Age shifting to more of like that style of combat?
Um, ooh, that's a toughie. Yes, I mean that's no secret. Been a long time fan of Dragon Age since the original. But here's the thing. I mean, you're talking those are usually multi-party games, so I don't know how that would work with God of War style gameplay,
Maybe
I
you would
guess.
command them like you kind of command the other characters in God of War, or maybe like if they mixed it with maybe like how Final Fantasy 15 did it, where you kind of can command the other people but not necessarily have full control of them.
I
What?
could see it more if it was more towards like Final Fantasy 15 style, where like you can switch between characters if you want to, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And to that extent, they did that with the Final Fantasy 7 remake. And I know some people aren't a fan of that, but I don't mind that so much. So I could see it more being like that, I guess. But I'd probably be fine with it.
Okay. Are you excited for the next Dragon Age?
I'm always excited. You say Dragon Age, and I'm hard as a rock, bro. So you know.
Well, hey, this is a family show. No, it's not. I mark it explicit every day. Um,
I I love the storyline and like it's just an interesting world and dynamic. Like especially the fact that like I've always liked elves and stuff and any sort of mythological stuff. And in the Dragon Age world, elves are kind of really persecuted on. If you've never played the games, like they call them knife ears, essentially like a derogatory
it's like a
term they
racial
would
slur. Yeah.
use. Yeah, so I'm intrigued.
All right. Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to come to you when that game comes out because I don't really play those games. I think I played Inquisition and that was it, and I bounced off it. I'm unpopular in that. I'm not a big fan of those games. Um, Next story is kind of a conflicting story. I put it in question marks. Xbox 360 marketplace shutting down, maybe. According to GameSpot, no, the Xbox 360 marketplace is not closing this May. But a support page, I guess, said that it was going to shut down in error. Um, I don't know. This is also stated on Twitter by Wario64, which if you don't know who Wario64 is, they're kind of like a leaker slash they're like if you need to like get a drop on a console, they know that and they're always watching the prices for everything. They're really notable on Twitter for being pretty spot on about all these predictions. This to me seems like Microsoft was about to announce this and then it leaked and it freaked everybody out. And then they're kind of backpedaling like, no, this isn't happening. I don't know. What do you think?
That would surprise me, honestly. I think that would be too soon. Because I mean, PS4 still has lots of stuff that you can buy on their marketplace. So I mean,
Well, this
it's
would be
just
technically going as far back as like because if you think of Xbox 360, that's like PS3 gen.
oh yeah,
So,
yeah, 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 yeah. I
but it's
could
like
see it
really
then.
popular games too, like Castle Crashers and like because you remember Xbox was like the really first big like they did really good job on the 360 generation of having all those arcade games, Xbox Arcade, Xbox Live Arcade.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
that was the one thing that they did better than Sony. I think that gen was having a better online service, like overall,
Um,
like playing online and having a lot of games. Sony caught up, but they were like the kind of the pioneers behind that. I will
Here's
give
my
them that.
thing. I could see them canceling it and then just integrating that into Game Pass.
Right.
That to me would actually be the fucking that would be the prime move, right? you get rid of it because obviously you're spending needless money and resources on
Keeping this marketplace alive. This what 2 gen behind console marketplace alive.
yeah. I could see them closing it down and then just integrating it into Game Pass so you could still have access to those games. That would be a smart. That would be the play, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. That would be a really good idea. This next one's from Video Games Chronicle. Says God of War Ragnarok. Sony says God of War Ragnarok has sold 11 million copies in 3 months, and it is the fastest selling first party game in PlayStation history. Any shocker? Anything you got to say about that? That doesn't surprise me at all.
No, I'm not surprised at all either. It's a great game. Anybody I know and everybody is either talking about it, has played it, or is playing it.
Right. I haven't finished it yet, because reasons, but I plan on getting back to it once I finish Crisis Core, because I'm gonna finish Crisis Core this week, and I might get back to it if I don't get sucked into Fire Emblem really hard.
Because
But
you have a disease of serial not finishing games.
yes, I am a serial games. I'm a serial game starter.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. That is what I do. How many of them will I finish? You'll never know.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. But I that doesn't surprise me that game sold that much. It was kind of the big showpiece this year, especially with all the delays from everything else that we got. That was like the big one. That was the one in my mind that, like, if this game doesn't hit and gets delayed again, what the fuck is going on with this console generation on all fronts? Because we've just had that slow trickle, and now it feels like it's finally picking back up. But yeah, doesn't surprise me. It launched right in the perfect launch window of right before Christmas. It was the big game to get, aside from like your Call of Duties and whatnot. It doesn't surprise me one bit that that game sold like hotcakes. A couple more stories here. Looks like this is according to Games Hub. Marvel's Midnight Suns did not sell to expectations, and Take-Two, which is the parent company of 2K Games and Rockstar Games, basically plans on they haven't said how many they're laying off, but they're laying off people in response to that. Not too much more to say on that, except, it's really surprised that Take-Two is really hurting for money that bad when they own Rockstar and 2K. I don't know. More bad news, though. What do you think?
More layoffs. Surprise, surprise.
Because the game didn't perform as well as they wanted. But, I mean, are we really surprised? This is going to sound mean, but are we really fucking surprised that Midnight Suns was like a commercial flop?
Me and you discussed this pretty much on the regular about being marveled and superheroed out. So, I mean,
it's the Marvel fatigue, and I'm going to go as far as to say superhero fatigue in general, whether it's DC or Marvel. Big time.
Unless it's My Hero Academia. I'm not superheroed out on that.
Well, no, that's totally different. Maybe that's what they need to do. They need to get some good developers on a My Hero Academia game instead of putting all these bad third-party developers on the My Hero Academia games. Make a good My Hero Academia game. You know how deep that roster is? You know how many I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. Look at how many people are on this thing. That's great for people that are just listening, but yeah. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me that it didn't do that well. I mean,
I'm not surprised at all.
The movies have been on like a slow downturn, like, in my opinion. I mean, they're still selling well, but the games have never sold that well outside of, like, let's see, Batman did well and Spider-Man did well. And the Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Snap.
Marvel Snap is huge. Like, yeah,
booming.
Is huge. But the big ones, like the Avengers game that Square Enix didn't do that well. And that's sad because apparently it had a good story. The Guardians of the Galaxy game was critically received really well, but didn't sell very well. The Midnight Suns game now not selling very well. So I think you're right. It's definitely might have to deal with like the fatigue of behind all those. Last two stories here, quick ones. This one comes from GameSpot. This was some early reporting of the Wolverine game. And if you don't know, Wolverine was being picked up by the same people who made the Spider-Man games at Insomniac. So that has me a little excited. Wolverine will be an M-rated game and could launch as early as fall 2024. And this report comes from GameSpot, but it also comes from I love this outlet. Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb was the one that first kind of reported this. But yeah, it's gonna be a mature rating. What do you think of that?
As it should be. As it fucking should be,
I think so
dude.
too.
It's
I think anytime you could,
Wolverine, bro.
yeah, anytime you could do something like that, and the fact that it's like it's the Spider-Man developers. Now, unlike the last story we just talked about, this could have the potential to be something really good because I don't know about you, but that Spider-Man game was really good. And I played Spider-Man Miles Morales, and I actually felt like Miles Morales is even better. And it was considered like like a smaller game, kind of like how Uncharted had those like side games that were still full price, but
Sure.
like I felt like Spider-Man Miles Morales was a lot better and a lot more concise in what and the story it was trying to tell than the Spider-Man game. And that's not knocking the Spider-Man game. The Marvel Spider-Man was really good. So the fact that it's the same team working on this, my only worry is that the second Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, is also in development and simultaneously with this. So
Mm.
could be spreading themselves thin, but I don't know. What do you think? What do you think of Insomniac gonna kind of? Do you think they could knock these out of the park if they play their cards right?
If they do it right, yeah, hundred
Did you play?
percent.
Did you play the Spider-Man games?
I dabbled a little bit in them, which is crazy because I'm a huge Spider-Man nerd. Spider-Man's my favorite comic book
Spider-Man's my
character of
favorite
all
too.
time.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I didn't play Miles Morales. I watched a lot of video of it, and it looked badass.
Well, the thing that like they not knocked out of the park that everybody says is they knocked the swinging out of the park. If you can't get the swing to
Oh,
feel good, you might as well not make a Spider-Man game. But
bro, just make it like the flying felt in Superman 64.
oh my god, if wounds could show, if wounds could show, and let's charge
Oh,
$120 for the cart because we can.
oh God. Ugh.
Um, yeah, but yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm excited for new Spider-Man. With both Miles Morales and Peter Parker in it. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah,
Um,
that'll be dope.
very last story here comes from Eurogamer. The Coalition reportedly cancels 2 unannounced games to focus on Gear 6. We kind of talk about this last week about where the hell is Gears when we were talking about the Microsoft event. I think it was either last week or the week
Oh boy.
before.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So, and this was also according to Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb. He reported this on Game Mess Mornings. And I just pulled this story from your gamer. But yeah, so they
Bro.
slimming down and staffing up to do another Gear 6. Well, it doesn't look like they're slimming down. Well, I mean, it's Microsoft, so they did slim down. But the Coalition looks like they're like canceling 2 games to do that. I mean, Gear 6. I mean, I don't have an Xbox, so I won't get to play it unless I decide to get it on PC.
Oh
But
man.
I think this is good timing for Microsoft to
Dude.
pull this out.
Eli's got that digital Xbox, bro. I will buy him a game card
We
to
need you to
get
be our
that
Xbox
freaking game.
correspondent on this cast now.
I'm telling you right now, like I will play some Gears has always been a thing that I've loved, dude, honestly, since Gears 1. Played it at my cousin's house when I was a kid, and literally this was my introduction. He was playing on the hardest setting, which I think is just hardcore on that. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, I've never played this game before. And he goes, well, this is how you're supposed to play the game. Quit being a baby. But they're fun. The solid storyline, the gameplay is fun, the characters are interesting. I'm with you. I think this is a great time to announce this.
Mm-hmm. Especially like we were talking about, like we don't like to sound like naysayers. Like just because we play on Sony and Nintendo does not mean that we're like console fanboys. Like we will look at Xbox. We just don't happen to own the consoles regularly, except your son does. Um, so we'd have to try to take a peek at that. But like we were saying that like they need to come up with something, and now this is perfect. Like if this actually is like E3 time, if they can say, hey, we got another Gears in the pipe and it's a year or 2 off, like that would get a lot of people excited again for anything Xbox because even the Sony stuff is slow to trickle out. They're just trickling out at a little bit of a faster rate right now than, and also that's gonna, that's gonna be day one on Game Pass.
Oh,
All their first
100%.
party stuff ends up being game. So if you have Game Pass, you're gonna just wake up the morning Gear 6 comes out and be able to download it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, boom, money in the bank, cash the checks. Like, this seems like a no-brainer.
Shut up and take my money.
Right. But yeah, that's all I've got for the week. I guess we went a little bit shorter than usual. I don't know what the score of the Super Bowl is right now, but but
I don't even know who's playing, to be honest with you.
it's the Eagle. Wow, why would I know this over you? It's the Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles, and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, do you got any plans for the week? I know we both said last week we were going to try to get streams in, but we never did because life happens. But what are you gonna try to get into this week?
So I've got some like life stuff that I'm dealing with on Tuesday and Wednesday, but I'm hoping tomorrow on Monday to stream Ogre because I keep saying I want to get back and play more, and then I don't. So I feel like people are like, "He just says that." No, I really do. I generally do. So hopefully that on Monday. Thursday is my birthday. And
so happy birthday!
Oh, thank you. So none of that. I will be playing D&D that day though. So some gaming, just not video gaming. But
okay.
What about you? You got anything cooking in the pipe for your week?
I'm gonna finish Crisis Core off stream. I promise. I'm literally midway through Chapter 9 and gonna bang out Chapter 10 and put that game in the books and be able to bring that next week to the next cast. Stream wise, I am hoping to get in another season stream. I would like to stream that. That's kind of all I've got in the pipe right now. Maybe another Fire Emblem stream. I don't know. I might have more thoughts on that. The point is, once I finish Crisis Core, I'm going to dive into the other games that I've been chipping away at. Fire Emblem, Season. A game that's a little older that I might be getting into that came out last year is Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins, which is the prequel to Final Fantasy 1 that plays kind of Dark Souls-ish. So that came out last year, but I picked it up on the cheap for Christmas, and it's just kind of been sitting, kind of waiting in the wings. So that might be a game that I might I will probably stream it at some point. Don't know when yet. But yeah, other than that, I don't have too much more in the pipe except for those. But yeah.
I would be interested to hear your thoughts on Stranger in Paradise once you play it.
Yeah, I that's kind of why I picked up. It was like I wanted to check it out, but not for like the full price. So I was like waiting for it to be at a decent price to pick it up, and it was like $30. So Sean was like, "Oh, this can be your stocking stuffer for Christmas."
Hey, shit, the price is right, man.
Right, exactly. So yeah, but we'll have to see you all next week, and we'll get into that and all the other stuff. We'll probably have tons of news still. You can follow us on social media at _ Black Box Signal. That's on YouTube and Twitter. You can follow us on Twitch at / Black Box Signal. And we do actually have an email address if you want to start emailing your questions in. It is blackboxsignalpodcast@gmail.com. Brandon, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/enrageme with an H at the end. I am also on Twitter. I try to be pretty active at enrageme with an H at the end also. Yeah.
And I am on Twitter at chasing_chase and on Twitch at chasingchasetv. But yeah, until next time, this has been the Black Box Signal. We will see you next week. And as always, stay safe, comrades.